Hello, my name is Ray Chambers and I'm a computing teacher at Uppingham Community College in Rutland. Now what I'm going to do today is I'm going to be using Office Mix to demonstrate how to use the switched on computing materials. So what I'm going to use is Unit 1, and we're going to talk a little bit about creating a collage today. Okay, so while using this unit of work, you may find that you need various software, but most of it in schools is quite easy to get hold of. The first thing you'll need to get hold of is Auto Collage, which is usually part of the switched on computing resources, or you can download it from the Microsoft Educators Network. We've also got Microsoft Word and PowerPoint, but also, there'll be some hardware that the students might need to use. Now, you can use digital cameras or scanners, but you may have tablet devices in schools that you can use to take your pictures so that you can give your students a full range of tools to use. But also, when they've finished this, there should be an outcome of them all having a collage of different aspects of their lives where they can show you as a teacher what they're interested in. And this is a good task to do, particularly if you've had students come in that are new to your class. So at the start of the unit, you might find it useful to find out what the students are interested in. For example, what are their hobbies? Do they like animals? What do they like? What do they dislike? Because if you've got an idea of all of this before you start, you might be able to get a lot more out of your students in a lot quicker time. Now, Unit 1 has a lot of different links, and you can use it in any subject, to be honest. Now, the link into the computing curriculum is that you use technology purposely to create and organize, store, and manipulate, retrieve digital content. Now, you can apply this to any different unit. For example, one of the main ones might be in science, where you can get different parts of the body and make a collage out of it. Alternatively, if you were doing an art subject, you might want to get different images for the students to use some kind of like inspiration. Also in numeracy, if you want your students to kind of show their knowledge of all the prime numbers, they could get pictures of all these prime numbers to help them out. English, we've also got history. You could use famous historians or famous people from the war. So there's a whole host of activities that you could link this into. Now at the end of this unit, the students will be expected to be able to kind of compare their differences, because if they're presenting their collages, they'll see what sort of things that they share in common. Now they'll also get the opportunity to use digital cameras, tablet devices, whatever you have available, and they'll be able to explore any changes that they can make. Now we can't forget that the new computing curriculum has 3 different strands, and this is very much digital literacy here, and we mustn't forget that this is very much part of the old curriculum, and our students still need these to kind of function in day-to-day use of the computer. Now, to be honest, the resources are quite flexible when demonstrating to your class. I mean, you could show your students a variety of images. For example, they could have pictures of singers to show that they're interested in. They could have pictures of their peers to show who their friends are. Pictures of animals to show what type of animals they're interested in. So if they can collate these and get these beforehand, it will make your job a lot easier. Now, before doing this series of lessons, you may want to prepare yourself and get yourself a whole host of materials ready. For example, you could get collages that already exist, or you could make your own using the Auto Collage software. You could actually make one in your lesson before you start. You can make sure Auto Collage is installed and running on all the machines in your room. But obviously some people aren't as fortunate to have a computer per student, so they might have to think about time management or doing a kind of timetable for those students who have access to the computer. Have you thought about making tutorials? Office Mix is a great tool for screen dumping, screen recording, and I'm going to demonstrate how to use Auto Collage in a moment. So this is Auto Collage. Now to use this is quite simple, but there may be some settings that you want to change, or there may be some images you want to include or not include. Now the way it works is it looks inside a folder. So for example, if I go to the image browser here, I can select which folder I want to use. Now I'm in my switched on computing folder, which has the images provided by the scheme of work. Now, what I can now do is I can choose how many images I want. So you can see it's automatically on 10. But if I want to, I can go down to 7, okay? And if I press create, that will make that, and it will get rid of 3 of these images. So watch, create. So you can see how it's moving these images into an order. But you will notice that some of those images have disappeared. And it's made my collage for me. Now I might want to change that slightly. So what I can do is if I go to options, I can choose to have it landscape instead. I can also go to my advanced settings and change what the image overlaps like. Alright, I can rank the images in a particular order. So if I click OK now and press create, the auto collage has not been saved. That's fine, I want to discard that and do another one. So you can see it's bringing back some of those images now. Okay, so it's detected those faces, but you'll notice there that I forgot to move that up, so I'll move that back up to 11 images this time. Press create again. So you can see within that folder is one that I used earlier. And there we go. So there's my auto collage. Now if you want to save that, you just go on save auto collage and find the folder. So documents, switched on computing, and there's my switched on auto collage. I'll save that, and you can even set it as your desktop background, and it does that for you as well. Okay, so I hope that's been useful, and that's how you use auto collage. So step 1 kind of talks about what makes the students unique, and what you'll be talking to them about is what pictures they might need, talking to them about the use of the digital camera and showing them alternative equipment, and making sure you show them how to use it, because they'll need to know how to download their images and save them in folders. Now, there's a couple of opportunities you have here, because if your students are struggling to think about what sort of pictures they need, you could easily take them onto Microsoft Word and use some of the smart art that's available. And with that smart art, what you can do is particularly write about things that the students are interested in to make mind maps. And then you've also got a demonstration that you could make to show them how to save their images in their folders. So like I said, in the switched on computing tutorials, it does say that you can do images in Paint or alternative software, but you can also do some other things with your students. For example, you might make a mind map of all the images required, which I mentioned previously, but you could also get the students to edit the images in an appropriate piece of software before putting them in the collage. Maybe there's people in the pictures that they want to crop out, or maybe they want to resize them. They could also draw a self-portrait at home, which can be scanned in later on, but you can also set your students the task of bringing in magazines and catalogues, CDs, posters, so that these can be scanned in, and then you're teaching them a new skill of how to use the scanner. Now in part 2 of this activity, you might want to talk to your students about what an algorithm is and explain how Auto Collage is a tool that kind of detects the faces, and when it combines them together, you'll notice that the faces don't overlap each other, and that's because Auto Collage have got a set of instructions, also known as an algorithm, right? And these are like a set of rules to stop it from happening. Now what you can do is display images and talk to the students and get them to think about what sort of rules there might be to stop faces from overlapping, so you can get them thinking about the algorithm that Auto Collage uses in this situation. Now, to get your students thinking about the algorithm, what you can do is you can get them to label photographs of each other's faces, or make posters to show what makes a face a face. So for example, talk to them about the eyes, the nose, the mouth, even the ears, so that they can see that if these were to overlap, the program would detect that there's a nose there and to move the other picture further away from it. And you could even show them pictures of photographs which don't necessarily meet these rules. So it could be a picture of a boat, it could be a picture of a teddy bear, or even a band, and then they could actually kind of come up with their own set of rules. And then for homework, they can draw faces of two different celebrities or people they're interested in and kind of say where they're similar and how they're different. Now, what you could come up with next is to get the students to think outside the box and see if they can come up with some sort of algorithm to sort faces from animals so that they can see the difference between the two and get them thinking about it in a computational way. So now it comes to the opportunity to get your students to actually start making the collage, and you need to make sure you show them how to create a folder for all their images, and you'll show them how to create the auto collage. But it's important that you show your students how to modify it and manipulate it. Give your students experimental time, because there's nothing more boring than giving your students a strict set of instructions and saying you must create your collage within 5 minutes. Give them some time to have fun with it, give them some time to enjoy it, and also allow them time to present their ideas at the end of the lesson. So you could get them putting their collages into a PowerPoint. They could make multiple collages and they can present them to the rest of the class. Make it a fun thing for the rest of the class. Hey, you could even bring in popcorn and get your students to give each other some feedback for some assessment. Now, once your students have made their collage, you could get them to print them off and label them, or you could even get them to put it into PowerPoint and kind of annotate it to put labels around it. But like I said before, you could get them to create multiple collages and build a presentation around it. So you could extend this task to get them using their kind of digital literacy. Now, once they've done that, at home they can actually write a description of their collage, and you can kind of tie that into English and get them using their literacy. Get them actually explaining what it is they like and why they like it, and you can get them to think about some of those descriptive words as well. Now, in terms of the assessment guidance, many people are panicking about assessment at the moment, but there's tons of different ways to assess this work. This is just one of them. So, for example, we need to make sure that all students can decide what to include, take photos of objects. They must be able to create their collage using the auto collage. Most of them should be able to take photos of objects and modify it in some way. And some of them will be able to use a paint program to create their own images, which they can later on add in. And they can add labels to their collages. Now, the next slide you're going to see will talk about some ways of using assessment within your school. So many people are a little worried about how they're going to assess come September. But remember, with the new computing curriculum, it's kind of open-ended, but there are tons of ways to assess your students' work. Now, for example, you could use peer assessment and get your students to review each other's work. So you could, for example, get them to write what was good, what was bad. You can get them to give themselves marks out of 10 and create some criteria for them if you like. There's also verbal assessment. Now, what you can do is get your students to print off their work, and you can write VA on it along with the date and get your students to respond to the feedback you've given them. So if you've written down VA on their piece of work and they print off a new piece of work, that's showing that they've made some sort of change and taken on the feedback you've given them. But you can also give them some feedback to say what was good about it and even better if. So what went well and even better if. So kind of pull on particular areas. So did the students forget to show evidence of manipulating their images? Well, you could actually highlight that in an area of feedback to say, well, you need to actually manipulate an image in some way, so whether it's cropping it or making it more appropriate, maybe changing the color. So these are all things that you could bear in mind with assessment in the new year. Thanks for watching this presentation, and I hope that that's been useful with the new switched on computing. Thank you.